The gospel lesson for this morning is from St. John's Gospel, the 2nd chapter, beginning at the 1st verse. On the 3rd day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. And when the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." And so they took it. And when the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This morning, if you would join me in thinking about weddings that you have been to, maybe even thinking about your own, and try to also remember weddings when you were a child. As I said to the kids, I was at my cousin's daughter's wedding a couple of weeks ago, and it was a wonderful experience for me because I saw some of my family members, a couple of cousins I hadn't seen in over 40 years. One of them who is now a father of his own and has a big business down in Florida. The last time he remembers being with me, he was about 14 years old, and we were playing catch in the backyard, and he asked me if I brought my glove. At any rate, it was an amazing thing, and meeting all these their children was fascinating to me and a very wonderful experience. And the wedding, the party the night before and the wedding day was quite a blowout. You know, as a minister, you get invited to a lot of wedding receptions, and of course, I don't go to a lot of them, mainly because I'm not part of the family. I don't. And I was noticing the ministers who were at this wedding, and they didn't look like they were enjoying themselves, and so it didn't help my feeling any about going to receptions and having a good time. You know, one of the things my uncle said to me, my Uncle Bud, who's somebody who's been very important, although I've only really gotten to know him over the last few years. He says, "It's a chance to let yourself go." I don't know what that means to you. And some of us have a very hard time letting ourselves go. Some of us are very tightly wound, and we've got to protect our territory. We've got a certain image we want to project. And I noticed that people on the dance floor, even people who have no idea how to dance, will get on the dance floor and have a great time. And you look at them and you say, boy, do they look stupid, but they're having a wonderful time. And I dragged my cousin and my sister and a couple of other people out on the dance floor. And of course, since I've been taking lessons for so long, I say to them, now I'm going to show you how to really dance. So it gave me a chance to show off, you know, a little bit at least. And so I enjoyed that. And my sister was so happy to be dancing with me, because when she was young, she would encourage me to dance, and I didn't want any part of it. It's not going to happen. And now there's this complete change in my old age. At any rate, but I remember as a child when we were told we were going to a wedding, we knew this was great because, first of all, the food didn't get monitored at a wedding. That was one good thing. Especially if it was served banquet style, you just went up and ate whatever you wanted. You put whatever you wanted on your plate, as much of it or as little of it. You could leave the vegetables completely alone. And the second good thing about the wedding food was that my mother didn't cook it. My mother was not renowned for her cooking. And so I used to love to go to these weddings and have a good time, and you could drink as much soda as you could get, and my mother and dad were busy dancing. I loved to watch them dance, and my whole family, all their relatives, were all great dancers, and so I really enjoyed watching that. And also they weren't watching me, so I could do pretty much whatever I wanted. And then I grew up and I started performing marriage ceremonies and realizing there's a whole nother aspect to this marriage stuff, which I had never known. And I quickly discovered that one of the people that's most difficult to deal with, not in all cases, but in many cases, is the mother of the bride. And the mother of a bride shows her colors immediately at the rehearsal, because at the rehearsal, when I have thought to be in charge, I often run into a mother who decides that she's really in charge. And I've had mothers come in and want to rearrange sanctuaries and say, could we possibly take down those religious kind of things? And you can imagine how well that goes over with me. And in my subtle way, I try to tell her, if you put your hand on that one more time, it's going to be trouble. And then you have all the things that happen at weddings, and you know, there was a show on that I just glanced by as I was changing channels one time, and it was one of those funniest video shows, and it was about weddings, and you saw all kinds of funny things happen at weddings. And sometimes when I watch those video shows, I think that must be staged. This one wasn't, because almost everything they showed I have experienced at weddings. I don't know how many weddings I've done now. It's over 200, something like that. But at any rate, I've seen just about everything that they could possibly show. Or heard about it from some of my colleagues. First of all, you're working with very nervous people, you know, very nervous people. And sometimes I've said, now it's time for the vows, and I look at the groom, and he's like a deer in the headlights. He's staring straight ahead. He doesn't hear me. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know why he decided to do this. He doesn't know who this woman is standing next to him. He just does not know. And I'm looking at him saying, I don't know if I should go through with this, because you're supposed to be conscious when you make the vows. And so you have to kind of get them together. And I've had weddings where the people are so nervous that the bride can't stop laughing. And you know, that's okay, I guess, except she's got to repeat some words and stuff like that. So, and the groom, sometimes everybody's crying, and I've had mothers sitting in the front rows wailing almost. And, you know, you kind of wonder, now, why is this woman wailing about this? Does she really hate this son-in-law so much, or what's the story going on there? So that's another very interesting thing that happens at weddings. And a friend of mine said he was a pastor in Wisconsin in his early career. He pastored 4 churches and would run between them on Sunday morning. 3 of them had worship every Sunday, and it would rotate. And then he had a wedding one afternoon, and the best man came running into him and said, "Pastor, have you got a rake?" And he said, "A rake? What do you need a rake for?" He says, "I dropped a ring in the outhouse." See, and you think you've heard everything. So he had to go get a rake, and somehow they salvaged the ring. I hope they didn't tell the bride. And then I've had both brides and grooms faint, which is also interesting. I kind of usually clue in the bridesmaids and the best man especially that, you know, pay attention to what's going on here, because on one occasion I had the best man who was doing the deer in the headlights thing, staring straight ahead with his eyes bugging out, while the groom was starting to weave, you know. Then at the last minute, fortunately he was a small, light enough guy, I grabbed him by the front of the tuxedo and just laid him down gently on the floor. I've had brides finish the service in a chair because they had fainted, and one father put his daughter in the chair and said to me, "Now hurry up." I said, "I really think she should be conscious, you know, through most of this wedding." But